Hello, everyone. Welcome. Well, we're going to skip right into the show today. We don't have my traditional opening video, but we may show it at the end. Okay, so today, welcome to Show Up with GailNow Live. And, you know, often in my opening, we talk about stories and the power of stories. And most manufacturers struggle with that. They may not even know the power of their stories. And that's where I come in. So again, my name is Gail Robertson, and I am Chief Curiosity Officer with GailNow. And I teach based on a 3-step process of sign up, suit up, and show up. And today we have someone who does show up. This is someone who I feel is very simpatico, very much someone who has a very curious brain. And she has an interesting background that really helps bring out the stories in people, because salespeople, once they learn how to, share their stories and first tell their stories, that is so important. So without further ado, I am going to bring Wesleyne Greer on stage. Woohoo!
Hello. Hey, Gail.
Hello. Welcome.
And your screen is black. I can't see you.
Oh, wait a minute. Let me see here. Let me see what is. You can't see me?
No, I just see your name, but I can't see your beautiful face.
Well, let me just, there we are. Yes. I don't know what, you know what, there is, due to technical difficulties today, I feel like, one of the things I love about live is that, sometimes things just happen that, like, I don't know where my intro video was today, but you know what? Life goes on. And, there was a time that type of thing would just like get me off my game. And I would and instead now I know, you know what? It happens. And it's, as I said, it's what makes live exciting as well. So.
Absolutely.
And we may throw in, at some point I may throw a video in here just for fun. So stay tuned just to break things up a bit since we missed the intro. I feel like, because actually my son was the one who produced my intro video, and it always adds a little bit of levity to today. So for anyone that is listening, watching out there today, please drop a comment so we know you're out there. I'd love to introduce you to Wesleyne, and we have lots to get to. So Wesleyne, let's jump in with a little bit of background about how you came from being a chemist to now working with salespeople. So over to you.
Thank you. Well, thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here and chatting with you today. So how I got from being a chemist. In college, I always knew that I love science. I tell people I would actually probably have been a math major, not an engineer, but a math major if I knew that I could do something with a math degree. But at that time, I had no clue. So I got into chemistry. I loved it. I worked in petrochemical labs with plastic, capital equipment, all of those things. And I decided I wanted more people interaction. I mean, because yes, it's great working in the lab, but I needed to talk to people because I love to talk. Anybody who knows me knows I love talking. So I tell people when I got into sales, I finally figured out what I wanted to be when I grew up, because I loved everything about it. And because of my love and my desire and my passion, I went very, very quickly from individual contributor to international sales manager. And all of those books and podcasts and classes I took when I became a salesperson, when I became a sales manager, it was just like, drop you in the middle of the ocean, figure out sink, swim, float, do whatever you need to, but I don't know how to bring these people along with you. So what I realized that there was this really big gap in the marketplace of building strong leaders, and not just strong leaders in sales, but really in these technical industries, because we're so focused on our widgets, our products, our science, our engineering, that we forget about the people behind us that we need to bring with us. So that's really how I became this sales coach focused on STEM industries.
Oh, so back to high school and loving science. Okay, that's where we part ways, because I would say that is probably, I was kind of interested, but it was, and it's interesting when I remember back in my math classes, I actually did well. And I remember meeting a teacher much later and they thought I did really well, but I never really liked it. I think that's the difference, right? There's one thing being good at something, another thing really having great passion. So what do you think it was about science that, did you have any from your parents or any other, the why that you like science so much?
My parents definitely are not into sciences at all. And I think I just really liked figuring stuff out. And it just always made sense to me, right? It's like I tell people 1 + 1 = 2. 2 hydrogen, 1 oxygen, you always make water. It wasn't warm and fuzzy. Like, to me, political science, those things, I call them warm and fuzzy because it's like, yeah, it could be this or it could be that. And the funny thing is, in college, I am actually a pretty decent writer. In high school, I actually won writing competitions. So like, I'm just innately, I think, good at writing. And in college, I had 2 professors that tried to convince me to change my major to English. And I'm like, yeah, but it just doesn't excite me as much. Yeah, it's okay. It just doesn't excite me that much.
Okay, that's interesting. So you have that kind of right left brain going too, right? That's yes. That's interesting. So maybe we do have more, because see, I've always liked more I liked geography, history, English, and did okay in the math and even science, but I really loved the more, the written word. And that's how I ended up going into journalism, actually. So it was, because I knew I didn't want to write books, but journalism became an option.
Yeah. And so I use that. I think now it serves me well, because even though that's not what I went to college for, or what I went to school, or my focus, I do a lot of things. I do a lot of writing, right? Because I have to write. I'm big on social media and writing emails and even writing training programs. And so I think that although it wasn't my first love, it definitely has served me well.
Well, I'm doing a little multitasking here because there is no comment showing up here right now in StreamYard that we're using. And I had heard earlier, luckily I was in on someone else's show this morning, and they said there was an issue with comments. So I thought, that's funny. I know there's people commenting. So I went over to my phone and checked while you were talking. But did you notice I was still able to listen and hear what yours says? It's like,
multitasking ninja.
I am going to read a couple of comments because I think it's really important. So for everybody that's commenting, I'm going to go over to my phone. I can't put them up on my screen, but I do want to recognize some people that have commented. I know previously 𝐤𝐬𝒔𝒏𝒆 had commented. I don't know if you two have crossed paths, but if you haven't, you should then, for sure. If Megan's out there, make sure. We have Inger early on when we first posted this, she did a shout out. John Buglino had commented and said hello. Katie McDermott gave a shout out to 𝐤𝐧𝐝, who I have since did a connection with on LinkedIn. And we have Jake Northrup from Cavular Tool and Manufacturing, a great tool maker here in Windsor. This is where they have their world headquarters, and Jake is one of the sales teams from the US. So hello, Jake. We have Katie McDermott saying, hi, everyone. Happy hump day. I hope you two will also connect. Janine Leslie Berglund, who is the president of the Canadian Association of Mold Makers, as well as Automate Canada. So Janine is in the house. She has got a very busy schedule right now. But I know one thing about Janine is she is also very good at touching base and making sure she shows up representing her members.
I'm going to have to stop you there for a second. You're saying she's a mold maker. So in my early days as a chemist, a part of what I did was I injection molded things. Like, I was actually out on the plant floor making the little dog bones and making things with molds. And so like when I walk through plants now and I see injection molders going, it makes me so excited. So hello.
Oh my God. Well, we have Jake is in the house, is an engineer, and I'm on the Canadian Association of Mold Makers. So while I'm not a mold maker, I am helping from a marketing perspective. And Janine was on the shop floor and has now gone on to have many different experiences. So you two should connect as well, because Janine definitely is someone who has a very curious mind and is always willing to look around corners. So, that's exciting. So she said, yeah, I can't wait to listen. Megan says, hello, Katie's here. David Chrysler stopped by to say hi. I know he has another event, but he said hi as well. He's an amazing process person. So everybody listening, we're going to be talking about process and sales. So stay tuned. I just want to make sure we welcome everybody. John Buglino says, I can't wait. He's another fascinating person in manufacturing. Marcus Moldovan is here too, also in the mold making world. So from a sales, Marcus, oh, I'm so glad you showed up. This is definitely a show for you. And then, David says, I made it at least for a couple of quick minutes and switching to team replay with John Buglino. So they might have to head off. But yes, so thank you everybody for posting. Just know I'm going to check on my phone periodically. And there must be something. There's a tech glitch in the world. But luckily I was checking, as I said, not just the hat rack. I thought there's no way there's no comments on this show. So, okay, Wesley, let's jump into, so we know that you have, okay, what would be your main transferable skills from going from chemist into a sales coaching role?
Oh, you're going to love this one. Because the first thing that popped into my brain was my curiosity. Because as a chemist, as I said, I actually literally worked on the shop floor. I was injection molding things, compression molding things, like actually doing those things. And I worked in a failure analysis lab. And so when the technical service engineers would come back, I'd be like, okay, so why did this happen? Why are we testing this? What actually happened in the field? I was always so curious about what was happening. And so when I transitioned into sales, I literally went into a company. I had no sales experience. They just wanted a chemist. And they were like, we will teach you how to sell. And so I went out to customers and I asked them, why? Why do you use this instrument? Why do you use the competitor's instrument? What kind of problems are you having? Like, I literally asked questions. And so even now in what I do, that is one of the most important things. Ask the question, why? Why do you do this? Why are you not doing this? Why are you using this? And that really helps you dig deep and understand what's going on in this technical sales world more.
Well, thank you for that. Yes, I did not, that was actually just right from you. And we talked about that earlier, that the power of curiosity, because we agree on this. And I think what it does relate to in manufacturing, because I love that too, failure analysis lab. That's a whole other topic for discussion. That's very cool. But, when you're asking the why and really digging in deep, it makes sense that it's going to help you with sales, because instead of assuming that you know the answer, maybe listen to what the other side or the customer or even someone you may not agree with, what might they be having to say from their perspective?
Absolutely. One of the best things that you can do in sales when you're a brand new salesperson, or if your business is kind of stalled, is really go in and do customer interviews and just ask them questions about why you're using our product or why you're using a competitor's product. Like, I make salespeople do loss reports. Go talk to the customer and ask why they chose the competitor. That's the only way we're ever going to get better. And so when you really use that, you turn your brain off from that sales mode and go into that student mode and really say, okay, I'm curious. I really want to understand what happened so I can get better. And a lot of times what you'll find is, okay, yeah, I'm on the front line of sales, but maybe I can have an input to go into manufacturing or into operations, because maybe it was lead time. Maybe their product was a little bit better. So really understanding the underlying aspects of what's going on is really what's most important.
I like that student mode, and really going in and asking questions to the customers. And one thing that I've found in terms of a transferable skill for myself is that ability to ask questions. And a lot of people have fear about asking questions. So maybe we can talk about that, because I personally, and maybe because I've done fundraising and I've done some, which is another, sales role, and even being a reporter is kind of like a sales role, is that most of the time, whenever I've thought, oh, I don't think I can ask that person that question, and then I ask it, and like I find out so much information than if I had created the answer in my head and been afraid to ask. So can we maybe dig into that using your science brain about how we can maybe help salespeople do that better or find it easier to do? because I answer more in the broader term, like just do it. From more of a scientific perspective, is there anything that you could suggest on how that might, what are some tips to help them do that?
So I actually was having a text conversation earlier today with a client, and we're setting goals for the team. We have a certain goal. They need to get to a certain point by the end of the month, and we're halfway through the month, even though it's a short month. And so what I told him to do was to ask them why. Just a simple question. Why are you not hitting your goals? So as a leader, just asking that simple question, why are you not hitting your goals? Somebody will say, well, I made 10 calls and nobody answered the phone. Oh, I'm having trouble with my quoting system. And then you keep asking, well, how is that impacting you? How does that work? And you do the same thing with the customer, right? So depending on where you are in the sales process, if you're very early in the sales process, it's a little bit creepy to be going so deep, right? So I always like to meet somebody where they are. So if you're really early in the sales process and you know for a fact that they've used a competitor's product, or you see something on their desk or on their LinkedIn or somewhere, just asking a simple question, what about that product do you like? And you're opening up their avenues of talking, of really sharing with you the things that they really enjoy. And people, again, they love talking about themselves, say that all the time. And if they chose something, they're going to tell you why they love it. And then a simple question of, well, what challenges have you experienced with it? Not what don't you like, but what challenges have you experienced with it? And that opens it up. And then you keep going. But one thing I'll caution you on is do not go in with a whole 10 pages of questions. You just need one. You have to have your one power question to open up the conversation. And you have to actively listen and ask more questions. Because if you have a list of all of your questions, you're going from being more buyer-centric, prospect-centric to being all about you. And nobody cares about you. It's about them.
I love that. And it's true. No one does care about you when you're in the sales role. They want to know how you're going to help them, right? They want to know, how can you help me? Like this.
Absolutely.
You know, we talked about this earlier. So let's talk about too, we learned that from kind of the knowledge that you have in sales. I would say, let's talk about parenting and what we can learn as a transferable skill. I know I was said to you earlier, like my son, when he has his headphones in or when he's listening to music, sometimes it's best not to interrupt. Is there any other tips that people could learn from that may help them with parenting as well as sales?
So the thing that pops into my mind when you ask about parenting is this conversation I had taking my son to school recently. He was like, Mommy, why does it seem like everybody needs the CRM to live? You always are just talking about the CRM. He's 13. I'm like, wow. So the big thing my big takeaway is that your kids are always listening to you. Like, you don't even realize that they're listening to you when you're on a work call, when you're doing things like this. They're in the fringes, they're in the car, and they're absorbing it, right? And so if we really want our kids to grow and develop in the way that we want them to, we need to be the best examples for them. And so by him asking me that, I'm like, oh, so let me tell you why it's important, because it is just as important as when you see, hey, your teachers gave you all of these assignments and you keep it straight. How do you keep it straight? You use CRM. So again, I always put everything that I'm doing into help them understand that, hey, what I do is actually helping people every single day. And my kids are like the best negotiators, because like, that's what we do. I'm teaching you how to be a salesperson. You're 7, you're 13, but they negotiate so well with me, too well sometimes.
And interesting, I would tie that back to sales, to your customers, is consistency of message, right? You know, and I think that, you know, sometimes people are, even when it comes to posting on social, you can still keep the message flowing without doing a hard sell, right? You can still keep messaging moving forward. So I want to talk about that in a minute, but I also want to address that we also talked about this, and the reason the segue into that you have 2 boys and grew up with 3 brothers. So how has that helped you be a great sales coach in this, especially in manufacturing and in the science world?
Yes. Really, if I think about the way that I grew up, so I have 3 younger brothers, I'm the oldest, and then I have a gazillion first cousins, like 40 first cousins or something like that. And there's only 9 girls. So I literally grew up around boys my whole life and really getting into a very technical field surrounded by men, right? And in what I do in sales and in this technical field, most of my customers, hey, they're men. And I think it helped me develop the thick skin. It helped me really be a really good negotiator. And then because I'm the oldest, having that oldest sibling's thought of leading and developing people and really showing them how to do things. Like that's my brother who's right under me. He always tells everybody that, oh yeah, she taught me how to cook. And I tell people now he's a much better cook than I am. I taught him the basics and he took what I gave him and he's like catering and all kind of stuff now. And I'm like, no, I just want to cook for my family. And so even those skills of really teaching people how to do things and watching them flourish is a lot of what I practice in my consulting company.
Oh, that's amazing. I love hearing that. We're going to take a little break here and go over to some of the comments because normally I'd be putting up on the screen, but I want to go through because for everyone that's commenting, thank you. And, it's really helpful when we're doing these types of shows, even if you're not checking into all the shows, it's a great opportunity to meet people in the comments. I can't tell you how many times I've met people. Wesleyne, I met because I went to an event that Kurt Anderson and Damon Plastuco put on. And, it's just fascinating how this does work. And a big part of my live show is that I really encourage the comments. So over to the comments for a minute. Okay, so we have, so I already mentioned Jake and Katie, Janine. We have we have also here's Kim Tiara's in the house from 𝐴𝐻�onics. So Kim is also on the board of Canadian Association of Mold Makers with me. Amazing. I want to come back to that, talking about when we get to the book of Heels to Deals and my work with training with women. I have some thoughts on this too, which is interesting. Kim was great because Kim was on a previous show talking about how she's used social media. We'll talk about that too, and how she's used video. And she says, wowzers, someone that is familiar with injection molds. Of course, Kim, I'm going to bring someone on. Actually, I did not know that until today. I was today years old so now Wesley, now you're like, stay tuned. I'm sure I'll be back in touch. And I'm sure now Janine will really want to talk to you. And if we ever have an event, I think we have now a speaker. We have, good afternoon. Let's see. I'm just seeing Katie says hi. David says hi. We've got lots of, wait a minute. I might go. We have Janine saying, Kim Tiara, she said, right, of course, about the plastic injection molding. We have Kurt Anderson is in the house. Hello, hey, Kurt. He said, this is awesome, powerful Wesleynisms. Whoa, that's a good.
Oh, yes.
I like
Kurt
that.
Likes my Wesleynisms.
Yes. And Kurt is another Kurt. I'm so grateful to Kurt Anderson. And for anybody not following, please go follow him because he is someone who opens doors. He's the biggest booster and he makes fun and he's going to be a future guest. So stay tuned. So Katie McDermott says, I love math. I got really bad grades, but I still love it. Numbers don't lie. Well, except sometimes in polling, but that's a whole other story. Every once in a while, I have to inject a bit of a GailNowism because I actually find, right now, especially what's happening in the world, polling, and because then my brain goes to, I want to see the questions. It's same like when they do radio polls, and I'm like, you really have to watch language too. And this is that right-left brain. I am fascinated by how polls are done, but that's a story for another day. Okay. I think I've covered everybody. I hope I haven't missed anybody. I'm sort of skimming through my, on my phone here. We have a lot of great people in the house. So thank you. And if you have any questions, please drop them in the comments and I'll try to at least get to them next time when I check. Okay. Let's go back to, I do want to talk about, let's talk about process because this is such a big part of what you do. I did a post today and I did a shout out to some people that, and I hope I didn't miss anybody, but some people that were really instrumental in my life with encouraging the use of process. And I'm someone who I push back on using a password manager. I push back on going to a virtual calendar as opposed to print. I push back on using a notebook. And now I use Evernote, 1Password. I like my Google. I use all of these tools, and it's amazing how life changing that can be when I switched over. And now I'm working on, process things, but let's have you talk about process, and we'll start with people, process, and profit.
Mm-hmm. Yes, the 3 Ps. And so when I think about, my 3 Ps, people, process, and then profit, you have to have the right people in place. If you start with the process first and then try to maybe fit a person here or there, then it doesn't work. But you really have to invest in getting the right people in the seat. And what I mean by that is, don't just say, hey, we have an open sales position and we're going to move somebody from engineering who's been here for 10 years and we think that they can sell. Or we're going to go get, this is one of my Wesleyneisms, one of our competitors' rejects, which is stealing somebody from the competitor, is really you getting the right people. And then once you have the people in place, you have to give them a process. And the process has to be one that anyone, even a brand new person, can follow. Step 1, step 2, step 3. And that's what really leads to profitability. And so when you think about, well, how do I even get these right people in place? When you're hiring salespeople, you have to always remember, salespeople sell their best asset, which is themselves. So most salespeople are really good in interviews. So how do you weed through all the noise? You weed through that noise by really using a tool to assess them. Find a way to assess that salesperson. Assess them, not are they a strong person? Do they have great presentation skills? But can they consultatively sell? And you're like, well, only a person who has sales experience can do that. That's not true. Some of the best salespeople I've hired have had 0 sales experience. You're really looking for those coachable skills. And then when we talk about process, you talk about, hey, we need to make $100,000 a month. How are we going to do that? Just give somebody a LinkedIn Sales Navigator account or a phone book? No, you have to say, first you do this, then you do that. If they say yes, do this. If they say no, you do that. And that's really what leads companies to profitability.
That is very well said. And coachable skills. And I think that ties into transferable skills, because someone can come out of an area that has, no experience. And I've seen this happen. Even for myself, like I was working in insurance technology world. And then I crossed over now to manufacturing, and specifically into the plastic injection molding world. And it really is about, being willing to do some research and, Saturday mornings, read some of the trade publications and listen to podcasts. And sometimes I listen to some and I'm like, I don't even know what they're saying, but it's almost like after a while, something will sink in. And I want to do a shout out to Tim Galbraith from Cavalier Tool, because he has become increasingly someone who has really helped guide me and has, a tremendous amount of patience and will explain things maybe more than once. So I appreciate that.
That's awesome. Yeah, you have to make sure, and that's the thing, like you just said about Tim, being able to explain things more than one way and understanding it's okay to have to say things repeatedly. And a lot of times, leaders, any kind of leaders, they are like, well, I told you at one time, you should be able to figure it out. But everyone doesn't learn the same way. And so sometimes people are auditory learners, so you should record them a video. Sometimes people learn by reading and they need to visually see it. So, hey, you should write it out. And sometimes people learn by doing. So they need to physically touch, feel, and do. And it's okay. Different people learn different ways. And it's your job as a leader to make sure that you're meeting your employees wherever they are.
That is so true. Yes, I'm just going to leave that. That is meeting people where they're at, listening, and providing that support, right? Which is something that I'm going to put this up again, meet someone where they're at, where they are, because that's the best place to start. And then you can move on from there. So this is another thing. Ongoing sales coaching must be a priority. So what are you, this is what you do, right? It's not a one and done. It is ongoing. So can you talk a little bit about what that ongoing work would involve for people that may be interested in learning more from you?
So one thing that I'll say, and I say it loud and I say it proud, is sales training doesn't work, period, full stop. It doesn't work because you can't stick somebody in a room for 8 hours and say, hey, do all of these things, rah, 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 now you're fixed. Or you can't just send them a bunch of videos and say, watch these videos and now you're fixed. You have to reinforce any kind of sales training program, any kind of training program, period, with coaching. And what does that mean? That means that you have to have ongoing touch points, and whether those touch points are daily or weekly or monthly, but you have to reinforce those positive behaviors that you're trying to see improve. And you have to give people things in small chunks. Like, you can't get somebody who maybe they've been selling for 10 years, but they're really, really bad at, let's say, using a CRM. You can't just expect them to go from never using a CRM to putting all of their information in it every single day. So you start small. You say, okay, I just want you to record your calls every day. That's it. Just put a call in, one thing. And then once they get that, then you move on to the next skill. So when you really think about that ongoing coaching, it is the small bits of information, of development that you give people every day, every week, every month, so that they can develop and grow.
Also makes a lot of sense that you break it down into those bite-sized pieces, right? So that, and I like the idea of not one and done, because the same applies, and this is probably a good segue. We're going to social media and using social media, is that I think sometimes people think I've gone to take training, or I've taken that one course and social media, or I've set up my LinkedIn account, or I have Google Analytics. But then I've asked people, even clients, I'll say, oh, do you have Google Analytics? And oh yeah. And they'll say, okay, can I see your report, like your numbers? And they look at me like, and I'm like, well, they don't magically appear. You have to go in and check on them, right? I check like every month. It's really important to check in and just get a gauge for where things are going. So social media and sales. Let's talk about that, because that's a big part of what I do with my sign up, suit up, and show up, and how to get manufacturers to not only develop their stories, but how can they share them? So how would that relate to what your work you're doing in sales?
So really, when we talk about using social media for sales, people think it's like, well, it's just so, social media is a marketing thing. It's not something that there's nobody, none of my customers aren't on there. But on social media, one thing that I say, and since we're speaking specifically to manufacturers, I would say you need to find the platform that your customers are on, right? And so if you're a manufacturer and you're selling directly to a consumer, what age is that consumer? Is that consumer like 35? They're probably on Facebook. If that consumer 25, they're probably on Instagram. Is that consumer 18? Maybe they're on TikTok, right? But if you're in the B2B realm, you Twitter or LinkedIn. And the thing is, find the one and do it well. Don't spread yourself so thin. Don't do all 5, 10, 15 social media platforms, because you will stress yourself out and you'll burn out and you'll stop. And your goal is to become, I call it sticky. You want to be the thought leader. You want to be that person that they're like, hey, oh, okay, you know what? That they told me how the importance of the tight tolerance in making a mold is, how important this really great mold release is. Like all of the ways, like this is what happens if you don't use mold release. This is what happens if you do. So somebody who's selling mold release, they're probably like, no, there's nothing interesting that I can do on LinkedIn. What can I post? Like, post before and after pictures, post customers that before they used your product, after they used your product, a day in your life. But really just think about the simple things that you can share, because your goal is just to be sticky. You want to be the thought leader and you want them to come to you. You do not want to spam people. Please don't spam people. Do not use automation to send them 100 million messages. Don't do that. The simple thing that you want to do on LinkedIn is post good content And don't overwhelm yourself. If you say, I'm going to do it once a week, do it once a week. Do it the same Wednesday every week, 2 days a week, 3 days a week. And the second one is engage with, as Kurt and I call, your soulmates. Who are those people that you actually want to be customers? Go engage in their content, like their content, comment on their stuff. That's how you really use social media to build your sales pipeline.
Thank you. Well, I know I've had other guests on here, and the one consistent message, I mentioned consistency, is making sure you're consistent, but also spending time, engaging, because selling is also about engaging, not only the one-way conversation. And when in the work I'm doing in manufacturing, what tends to happen is people have fear about, posting, because they feel like, I don't know, that it's going to be, people are going to judge them. I'm not sure exactly. There's a bunch of different reasons. And I think people also say they don't have time. So let's talk about that, about not having time to do social, not having time to put into your CRM, not having time, ... fill in the blank. What are your thoughts on that? I don't know what they are, but I think I might have a guess at what you so.
So this is where my chemist brain comes in, and I think about the structure of your day. And so one of the questions I always ask people is, when is your brain most active? And some people are, at the beginning of the day. Some people are at the end of the day, at lunch. Whenever your brain is most active, you do the thing you don't like doing. That is when you do the thing you don't like doing, because if you leave your social media for 5 o'clock at night when you know your brain is shot, you're never going to do it. It's never going to get done, and you're going to be giving it your leftovers. And even if that's your CRMs, for some people, it might be cold calling. Some people, it may be interacting with their difficult clients. You have to do that when your brain is most active, and literally on your calendar, block time off. 30 minutes. And that's all you need. 30 minutes a day to update your CRM, 30 minutes a day to do some social media. And then the rest of your day, you do the other activities you have to do. But it's also important to understand where you're spending your time. Are you wasting too much time chasing those leads that, you've been working on for 6 months and they're not converting? Or are you spending too much time chasing brand new leads for brand new areas that you've never made any splash in? So really understand where you're spending your time and how you're spending that time.
That is something that is one of, probably for me, one of the biggest issues that I've decided to work on in 2022. And it's almost like starting anything new, a habit. It's so easy for me to regress, because see, my favorite things would be social media, networking, talking to people. So I have to push that to the end of the day. So I often set up a lot of my meetings, because to me, talking to people, meeting people, that energizes me. So I have to really force myself to do other things in the morning, because you're right. It's go, like they say, go follow the money, follow your energy, follow where your energy is. And that's why I actually try to get, and I've slipped a bit, but get my workouts done first thing in the morning, because I'm not someone who's I'm not someone who's like, oh, I'm so addicted to this. No, I'm not.
No.
No, I'm not addicted. I do have a friend. She's amazing. She would be she's one of those people, she thrives on it. And I was like, but she can go out at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, go do something. I'm like, no, I could think of 10 reasons why not to by 4 o'clock. Okay. We're going to go back to a few more comments. So we have lots of chatter going on out there. So thank you everyone for continued comments. The last time I checked, we had almost 50 comments. That's great. Lots of activities.
Awesome.
So I just want to share this with you, because normally, Wesleyne, you'd be seeing this happen, which is kind of exciting for me to put them up on the screen. You get to see people. We have the next best thing here. So we have a yay from Janine Lasleen Berglund. She's saying hello. And a shout out back to Jake. I want to do another shout out to Jake from Cavalier Tool. Thank you for stopping by and for posting. Jake comes from more of an engineering background and is really someone I'm going to see, I think, doing a lot more on LinkedIn, right, Jake? So we have, let's see. I'm not seeing, I know there were some more comments, and it might be that I'm not getting, so we might have to come back. If anyone, please drop in a comment. We still have, I think that was it. I thought there was a new one. Oh, we have, Katie mentioned that Isaac networking, the comments, and learning about industries. So yeah. Okay. So back to you. I'm taking some notes because a future time I want to do a post about some of the highlights because you have dropped some really great things. I like the sticky idea, being a sticky, and also about, that the idea of sales training and what works and what doesn't work. Cause it is about consistency. And if there's one thing across the board, everything you've talked about, everything I talk about is that idea of you have to find a way to make it consistent in order for it to work. And whether that's fitness, whether it's financial literacy as well, right? It's about being consistent. Let's talk about mindset, because I know this is also something that we have in common, because that's part of my sign up. Before I work with someone, I want to know, are you willing to sign up before, do you have the right mindset to see that, telling your story using social media is something that you want to invest in and that you're going to, provide support back to me to be able to help you do that. How do you see mindset in the world you're in?
I always tell people, they're like, well, Wesleyne, what is your ideal client? Who is your soulmate? And I always say there's one key thing I need, and it is a propensity to change. And so if somebody has what I call a propensity to change, that means they are willing to do the hard work that they need to move from where they currently are to where they need to get to. Because a lot of times the companies that I'm working with, the leaders that I'm working with, some of them are actually hitting their revenue. A lot of people are like, oh, we only use a sales leadership coach if we're not hitting our numbers. No, I have a lot of people that are actually hitting their numbers, but they've been stuck in that place for 5 years. Their company sees potential in them, but they haven't been able to get a promotion. They haven't been able to grow. And maybe they're just hitting their numbers and everybody on their team is just hitting their numbers, or a few people are hitting their numbers. So it's not only just about revenue. It's really about a lot of the things, the characteristics that you need as a leader to grow and develop. Because again, nobody gives you a playbook of how to lead a team, how to talk to finance, how to talk to operations, how to deal with your boss, and do all of the things that you have to do as a sales manager. And so it's kind of like trial by fire, and some people figure it out and some people don't.
Trial by fire. I like that. And I like the propensity to change. I think I'm in that camp, as well as I look for people that are curious, because if I'm going to work with someone, are they going to be open? And that leads into being open-minded, because I also believe that you can't be both curious and judgmental. It's very hard to be both, because as soon as you're curious, you're going to find out more information. And lo and behold, you may even change your view on something, or you may be open to saying, what I like to say is that, you can have a difference of view too. And I'm a great believer in you can disagree without being disagreeable. Mm-hmm. And the other line I use is that take the best, leave the rest. And you don't have to necessarily do everything, right? Like there's things in life that we can say, like even with social media, can you take the best, leave the rest? You don't have to agree with everything. You don't have to jump all in and, spend hours a day on social media or hours a week. Even you can really, go to where you're at. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about this, because I did take a listen, and let's talk about your podcast, because for anybody listening today, because I want to get into a little bit about who you are outside of work to a certain extent, but for people that want to really hear some more gems, how long have you been doing your podcast now?
Oh, it's been about 1.5 years or so. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. And I like to say the science of selling STEM. For me, M is manufacturing. So it's science, technology, engineering, and manufacturing, because mathematics is a part of all of that. That's what I say.
Perfect. There we go. So easy to find. Just Google. You can find the podcast and take a listen. I've listened to some and excellent interviews that you have, Wesleyne. And I know how much work is involved in doing that type of thing. So kudos to you for that. Also, since we did talk about Kurt Anderson, and I don't know if he's going to drop it in the comments, and if not, we'll make sure we go back after, drop it in. You are doing a webinar tomorrow. So for, again, everybody listening, they'll want to go sign up. Can you just give a little highlight of what they will learn and why they should sign up?
Yes. And so one thing that I am big on is action. So you will never leave a workshop, a training session, or anything that I'm doing without some really actionable insights. So tomorrow, Kurt Anderson and I, we are talking about really networking, like the how of networking. A lot of people don't really understand, even though we've been in this digital world for a while, the how, the why, the what. So we're doing a webinar with Temple Small Business Development Center tomorrow, and we're going to teach people how to network, and you will leave away with some actionable tips and tools on how to network better. So please join us.
Well, I would say definitely go sign up for that, because Kurt does both networking publicly, we'll go share, but behind the scenes, he has anybody that he recommends to me, I without fail has brought so much into my life and helped me learn so much as well. So I'm sure you will both have lots of tips. I actually also talk about that, about, networking and curiosity, and how when you start meeting new people, new doors get open, and you don't always have to stay in your own lane of only in manufacturing. You can actually network outside of there and learn new things, which leads us into a little bit about how you feed your curious brain. Let's talk about that, and maybe touch upon everything from baking to boy mom to shows that you like to watch, and podcasts and audiobooks. So
yes. So I always go back to my chemist brain. Baking makes sense to me because you have to use the precise amount to make it come out perfectly. I cook because I have to eat. My family has to eat, but I love to bake. I really enjoy baking cakes and decorating, and I make a really, really good red velvet cake. I had to work on that one because it's not an easy cake to bake. It's my husband's favorite. And so that's what I do in my free time when I have just relaxation time. I really enjoy baking. And I am a very avid, I'm an audio person. So I learned that about myself. I learn by hearing. And so as I hear, that is the way I process information. So I really enjoy audiobooks and podcasts, and I listen to like 5 audiobooks at a time. So right now I am listening to Entree Leadership. I am listening to the Challenger Sale because I think it's really good to learn other sales methodology. I'm listening to Get Different, which is a book all about marketing. And I'm also listening to a book on personal development called Bamboozled by Jesus. So I'm listening to all of those, and I decide, hey, whatever mood I'm in. Sometimes I'm cooking, I want to hear this. Sometimes I'm walking, or if I'm taking a break from work. And so that's how I really feed my curious mind. And, because I'm such a audiobook listener and podcast listener, I'm not as much of a big TV watcher. So I have a couple shows here and there that I tune into, but I will binge a audiobook before I would binge a TV show, which is, I guess, sounds like my nerdy nature coming out.
Well, I think it's interesting too about your baking. And for me, I'm not as precise, so I tend to bake things that don't require precision. But it's almost like sometimes people like us also need to give our curious brains a bit of a rest. So doing something that's not work related. For me, I like to usually watch something. And right now I am watching Yellowstone because it was recommended to me. And I gotta say, it's kind of like, junk food for the brain, but it helps me to just disconnect from politics, from what's happening in the world, and also, my work. And I almost have to, because when I don't do that, I find I get off kilter a bit too.
My husband is trying to get me on Yellowstone. He just added me to his Peacock account so I can start watching Yellowstone. He's like, you gotta watch it. He's like on season 2 or something like that. I'm like, okay, I'll start it.
I will say this. It is a great, male-female show to watch. It's funny because I was kind of, and then my one friend, she kept talking about it, and I'm like, I don't know. It's like, because I always tell my son, he always gets me in more shows sometimes that are too, like, a little dark. And I'm like, I don't want to go there. I want something a little bit. Now, there's some things with Yellowstone that are a little on the, but there's lots of, drama, and there's little, kind of that soap opera aspect, but also lots of, guys on lots of cowboys, so the guys all like it. There's a few, a bar fight or two, so it's kind of a good balance to watch.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I guess that's why he thinks I'll enjoy the drama, I'm guessing, and it's enough adventure for him.
And there's character development, and you have to watch it if for nothing else than Beth. That's all I'm going to say. There's things see, I love about, because when I'm watching, and I actually sometimes, I know this is crazy, I'll sometimes wake up in the morning and go, I wonder why that happened. Why did they say that? And that's the kind of show I wake up sometimes wondering, which is healthier sometimes than other things, wake up where I'm going. So I do like to, I love character development in shows. So there's definitely, and they'll do flashbacks. So you find out what happened to them as children. Love that stuff. So very cool. Okay. Let's go back to, we have some comments I want to read. So we have Kurt said, sending lots of love to both Gail and Wesleyne. Thank you, Kurt. Katie said, so glad I found Wesleyne. Thanks, Gail. I am off to my weekly webinar. She goes at 1. Thanks for all the nuggets of wise advice. Until next week, wishing you all the best and a super day. Okay, that's good. Now it's funny, on my phone, the messages come in and like kind of, I don't know, not in regular order. So I'm trying to look and say, did I miss anybody here? That if I have missed anyone, I will come back and give a personal. We have Katie said, thought leader, my new favorite title. And Katie also tags someone else, which is, I love when that happens. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for the comments. That was great. Thank you, Wesleyne. Is there anything else? I was just looking at my list. If there's anything else, I mean, there's so much wisdom that you have to share. Is there anything else that you have upcoming that people listening might want to know about and should know about?
I'll talk a little bit more about my podcast, and it's released every Wednesday, The Science of Selling STEM. And what I do is I interview either both CEOs as well as VP of sales and sales managers that I say have lived the life. And so they've all worked within these technical disciplines, and they share their war stories of being a brand new salesperson. Like, we talk about them going door to door. We talk about them out on the oil field, all their early career to what they're doing now, and how they use those skills to really become strong leaders, whether they're leading a team or leading a company. So I encourage people to check out the podcast. It's a really good, and it's funny. I have even my chiropractor. She's not really in the STEM industries, but she listens to it every week because she's like, she gets a lot of good information. So it's a really good thing. And I think the temple thing you mentioned, that's all I can think about right now. But when you came on, you were like, you have this, and this. And I was like, yeah.
I did remember one. Let's talk about this, From Heels to Deals. This is a book. Yes. I knew there was something I forgot. So let's talk about From Heels to Deals. A little bit back about that.
Yes. So Heidi Solomon, she came up with this amazing idea to get women in sales to write about their journey, because there are so few women that are in sales, technical, non-technical, but in B2B sales in general. And so I have contributed to that book. It will be released on International Women's Day, which is March 8th. And so I would encourage everyone, whether you're a woman in sales or even our male allies, so you can really understand what it's like to be a woman in sales. So you may be like, I'm not a woman in sales. My daughters are all grown up, and that's not anything that I'm interested in. But really understanding our journey, and there are 33 women, so it's all diverse perspectives, diverse industries, all kind of backgrounds. I write about my journey as a chemist going into B2B sales and to where I am now. So.
I love that. Well, I have in crossing paths working with some women, especially in manufacturing, one of the things that I found that they are often very willing to go out and try some things on social, and especially once they do video. And for anybody that hasn't listened, I had Kim and Simi Tiara on the show a few weeks back. It's a mother-daughter team, and they talked about how they're using social, how they are really starting to make, network in this new virtual world. So it's great to see, what can we learn from some of these tips and recommendations as well. And generally we have a lot more in common than we have differences. Mm-hmm. And Absolutely. Sometimes we focus more on we can spin our wheels and drain ourselves looking at sometimes the differences. And I'm a bit Pollyanna about this. I actually think in our world, if we really started looking at what we have in common, what is the common ground? What do we have that we can work on together? We would maybe have a better world. And yeah, that's my Pollyanna statement for today.
Yes. And the thing is, it's so true, because if we think about our diverse backgrounds, the things that have joined me together with a lot of the people that I work with and collaborate with and even do business with, it's because of my background, right? Like, okay, I worked in oil and gas. I was a polymer chemist. I was a salesperson. And so all of these things are what really unite us together. And even the way that we connected was I actually met Kurt through someone else we probably know together, Dan Bigger, who was on my podcast last year. And Dan said, hey, you need to know this person. And so he introduced me to Kurt. And this was all through LinkedIn, right? Like I connected with these people through LinkedIn. And so really opening your eyes to understand that we can use these social platforms to help us grow our network, to help us grow our business, and help us develop as people.
That is wonderful. Definitely a shout out to Dan Bigger, who is now with 𝒚𝒆𝒏𝒆 and works with John Buglino. And yes, and also I'll do a shout out. There is every Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, there is USA Manufacturing Hour over on Twitter. I've met a lot of people that are going to be on my show. I've met through Twitter and haven't, last week I had Christina Fuges on from Mold Making Technology, who we met through Twitter, then really met at the Amerimold trade show in September. And it felt like now, like we feel like friends just because we on Twitter, you can share a little more personal. So yeah, it is amazing. And you are a testament to my sign up, suit up, show up. So you are definitely another guest that checks off all those boxes. You show up and you do it with amazing energy. And I hope lots of people tune into your podcast, go visit your website as well, connect with you on LinkedIn, and so much to learn. So, okay, I am going to I'll meet you in the green room in a few minutes. I'm just going to do a quick sign off and I'll see you in a minute.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, Wesleyne.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Okay, everyone. Well, thank you. Wesleyne is definitely someone that you'll want to get to know. She has so much information on her LinkedIn, her website, and please go listen to her podcast. I'm a big advocate as well of listening to podcasts. You can do it, while you're working out, while you're going for a walk, while you're going bike riding. And also, there's audiobooks. There's so many things that you can do where it's I call it kind of healthy multitasking. So I try to listen to things that I have a few, one particular podcast I love is Hidden Brain, because that is all about how we think and how we can think differently. So if you need help telling your story, you can find me on most social media channels. I am here on LinkedIn. I'm on Twitter as GailNow. I'm sometimes on Instagram, and have not tended to my TikTok of late. Lots going on. So that's sort of more, I'm in the background. I'm more of a consumer of information there right now than producing. And all of my previous shows are also on my YouTube channel. So thanks everyone for tuning in. And remember, when you sign up, suit up, and show up, you can definitely help not only learn to tell your story, but to share it to a much broader audience. Have a great day, everyone. And we'll see you next week with another guest that is ready to show up.